So, it's been 10 years since Doom 2016 came out. Doom 2016 is without a doubt one of the most legendary reboots within the world of video games. Not only did it revive its own franchise, restoring Doomguy to his status as a gaming icon, it also helped establish the entire subgenre of boomer shooters, which is ironic considering it technically isn't a boomer shooter. And this renaissance has now been going on for a full decade, which is crazy to think about, because that also means it's been 10 years since I graduated high school. Doom came out in the middle of me writing my final exams and I played it as soon as those were over. I love this game. It's what made me a Doom fan and it has influenced my life in many ways. I even wrote a review for it back in the day that got published in the school newspaper, but it's been a while since the last time I replayed it. That was before Eternal came out and I've been a bit scared to go back since. What if it doesn't hold up? What if the game that once felt exciting now feels underwhelming compared to what came after? Good news, it's still amazing. Let's start at the beginning. It's a well-known fact that Doom 2016 had a troubled development cycle. While Doom 3 essentially retold the events of Doom 1, Doom 4 would be a new take on Doom 2 by taking place on Earth. If you're a Doom fan, you've probably seen bits of this footage floating around. This is known as Doom 4.1.0, also called Call of Doom, because it was Doom trying to be a modern military cover shooter. The usual story people tell is that it was working on this, realized it was shit, and then made Doom 2016 instead. Obviously that's a very simplified version of the events, and even after 4.1.0 was canned, the game still went through various troubles and shifts in direction. Footage and details of older versions periodically surfaces on the internet, so have fun looking through it all if that's your kind of thing. I bring all this up because while the final game we got is without a doubt a masterpiece, there are some cracks here and there where you can notice the changes it went through behind the scenes. Or at least I think so. I don't know, I wasn't on the dev team, so what do I know? Before we go further, I just want to say that this isn't going to be a detailed walkthrough or breakdown of the story and gameplay. More competent people have done that already. I'm just here to talk about some elements and details about this game that I think are neat. Some of them became part of the series, others are exclusive to this game, making them all the more interesting. Also there's gonna be spoilers, both for this game and Eternal. I don't think I need to point it out, but you never know. Doom 2016 truly is a timeless classic. However, one thing that isn't timeless is its main menu. It used to look like this. You could argue it was maybe a bit too simplistic, but I think it works. Unfortunately, it eventually got updated and now advertises other Doom games. First it was 2016's DLC, then Eternal, and now the Dark Ages. And I kinda hate this. Doom 2016 is such an important entry to the series, but anyone's first impression now is just gonna be dedicated ad space. That major gripe aside, the main menu gives us our three game modes: campaign, multiplayer, and SnapMap. What I always found odd is that instead of being separate menus you can quickly swap between, each time you swap to another mode the game needs to shut down and boot up again. It's like rather than making one game with three modes, they made three different games packaged together. I wonder why they did it like that. On another note, some of that leaked development footage shows how at some point the main menu was actually the UAC logo, with each point representing one of the game modes. That's a fun idea. Once again, I wonder why they changed it. Now most of this video will of course be about the campaign, but I wanted to touch on the other two modes as well. The multiplayer mode, I feel, kinda highlights how the people in charge just didn't know what to do with this game. Whether that's the higher ups at id or Bethesda, I do not know, but it's clear that someone important thought the main appeal of this single player game was the multiplayer mode. Infamously, they held an open beta test for the multiplayer that wasn't received well and then refused to send out review copies because of it. And then after the game release, they kept making DLC for the multiplayer even though everybody wanted new single player content. To the point that for Eternal they immediately confirmed single player DLC to be a thing. Of course, this was the era of multiplayer shooters with a tagged on campaign, so it's not too surprising. Times have changed though. Nowadays you just get a hero shooter that dies after 2 weeks. As for the actual multiplayer, it's fine I guess. I couldn't get into it, but I hear it had a dedicated player base. No idea if it's still active. The demon transformation gimmick is kinda fun, even gave us some brand new demons. Then there's SnapMap. The classic games are known for their custom levels, so it was deemed an important enough feature to bring back, and thus we got SnapMap. Just like the multiplayer, I couldn't get into it, but enough people did that Eternal initially caught some flack for not having a level editor. Of course, since then it has released proper mod support for Eternal, allowing things way beyond what was possible in SnapMap. With all that out of the way, let's talk about the campaign.
They are rage, brutal, without mercy. But you will be worse. Rip and tear until it is done.
Story in Doom has a contentious history. There's that infamous Carmack quote comparing story in video games to story in porn. I feel like people unfairly hold that against him. He said this in the early 90s. A lot has changed since then. Ironically, Doom 3 would get criticized for having too much story. So you can see why among the troubled development of Doom 2016, the approach to story was a major hurdle. Hugo Martin infamously said that if he revealed how late in development they figured out the story, he'd get in trouble. When you put it like that, it kinda sounds like the story was finalized like a week before release. Obviously that would be logistically impossible, but it does make me wonder about the exact timeline of events here. One big aspect Martin mentioned was how originally the enemies being demons was kept vague for the first part of the story. Eventually they realized this was kinda stupid because the players already know they're fighting demons, so keeping it a secret would be pointless. This of course led to the iconic demonic invasion in progress screen. Interestingly though, Hayden still refers to Hell as their world for most of the game. Again, this makes me wonder about the timeline of how the story was put together. Were these lines recorded before they shifted direction? Or is this Hayden maintaining corporate speak? The rest of the UAC seems pretty open about it, so why would he refuse to call it Hell when talking to Doom Guy of all people? Speaking of Hayden, did you know he was originally meant for Doom 3? He got cut from the game, but General Hayden still appears in the novelizations. Good old Samuel Hayden. The cast of Doom 2016 is not that big, and since Doom Guy is silent, most of the dialogue is Hayden. He's a fun character, human scientist who defeated cancer by turning himself into a giant robot. He's so adamant that he can control the forces of hell, even though everything's clearly gone to shit. Yeah, he acknowledges the disaster, but he also keeps talking about the greater good. And how he thought Olivia was above being corrupted. My guy, you were 100% aware that she was doing satanic rituals under your office, and somehow that didn't ring any alarm bells? Unfortunately, all that fun characterization kinda gets thrown out the window when Eternal's DLC revealed he was secretly the Seraphim all along. It was a fun reveal at the time, but in hindsight it just ruins his whole character and dynamic with Doom Guy. Then we got VEGA, the AI assistant. Despite being your typical emotionless AI, I got pretty attached to him. Probably because he's the only one trying to help Doom Guy without ulterior motives. It's kinda sad how he just talks you through how to kill him without even being bothered by it. Thankfully we get to save him on a USB drive. Is it a bit silly that this super AI that requires the entire south pole of Mars to run can be saved on a USB drive? Maybe, but it's fun and it gives Doom Guy some depth, so who cares? And unlike Hayden's reveal, VEGA being the father still works with how he was established in this game. The codex did mention that Hayden used some arcane artifact to create him. And of course we have our antagonist Olivia Pierce. She essentially fulfills the same role as Dr. Betruger did in Doom 3, just with a less blatant name. Wait a minute. Considering how present she is during the first act of the game, it's kinda weird how she just leaves the story after blowing up the Argent Tower. I mean, it does make sense when you think about it. She served her purpose to let the demons in, so now Hell just tosses her aside. Until she suddenly comes back at the end and turns into the Spider Mastermind. Man, she really is just like Betruger. Besides these three, the only characters are the two facility voices and the demonic voice, which we now know as the Dark Lord. Also the voice from the opening. Did we ever find out who that was? Considering the overall unimportance of the story, I sure talked about it a lot, huh? And I didn't even touch on the lore from the codex yet. Doom lore. Boy, what a concept. The codex is filled with way more info about every character, location, enemy and item you could ever hope for. And it is here that we get most of the actual backstory. Without the codex, 2016's story is just Doomguy wakes up on Mars. Everything's gone to shit. Olivia opens a portal to hell. Hayden helps us find the MacGuffin. We defeat the final boss. Hayden betrays us. The end. But thanks to the codex, we get a full backstory on why the UAC exists, how they discovered hell, where Doomguy comes from, and most importantly who these Crusader Force Ghosts are. All tucked away where only the lore nuts will look so it doesn't interrupt the gameplay. It's not the most elegant storytelling, but it works for this kind of game. And then Eternal and Dark Ages decided that no, we do need cutscenes to interrupt our gameplay to show characters nobody cares about. At least you can skip those. Unlike 2016's few scripted sequences, there's not that many, but they do drag a bit on a repeat playthrough. Let's actually move on to gameplay stuff. Like I said, I was scared it wouldn't hold up compared to Eternal and Dark Ages, but luckily it's still great. It's also way more straightforward. No need to worry about counters, weak points or crazy air mobility. Just run and gun like in the old games, plus the occasional glory kill. The one thing I did miss was a dash. Getting from one side of the room to the other can be weirdly cumbersome at times. Although, you can sorta get a dash by upgrading the rune that increases glory kill distance. This gets hilarious while using the Berserk power-up. Just spin around while spamming the fire button and you zoom across the arena. Man, power-ups sure got done dirty in Eternal. They just felt like such an afterthought. Berserk especially felt weirdly underwhelming. Back in 2016, however, they were great. A fun little bonus thrown into certain arenas to mix things up and add another element of strategy. Berserk is obviously the big one, but the rest are fun too. I also like how the codex actually tries to explain them as an in-universe thing. It does say that each one results in the user dying a horrible death, but luckily Doomguy is just built different. Here's a weird thing, you can crouch. You only need to do so exactly once in the second level. They removed it in Eternal. Ventilation shafts are now just big enough to fit Doomguy while standing. This feels like one of those weird carryovers from older builds of the game before they changed direction. On a similar note, does anyone actually use the grenades? They give you like 3 different kinds and they're just kinda there. At least Eternal's Ice Bomb had a clear gameplay function. Let's talk about the real weapons. The full classic arsenal is here, plus a standard machine gun and a railgun from Quake. Personally, my go-to is the super shotgun, as it is in every game, with the ghost cannon for longer range. And apparently this was everyone's go-to combo, which is why Eternal added a bunch of bullshit to force players into switching weapons. Like, I kinda get it, but it also takes a bit of the fun out of it all. I may have been anxious to replay 2016 because I feared it might not hold up, but I straight up dread replaying the start of Eternal where I only have 6 shotgun shells. Something I didn't quite realize until watching other people play is that most of the guns are completely optional. Quite the contrast to Eternal and Dark Ages where picking up every weapon is required for the story. The only guns required to beat 2016 are the pistol, the combat shotgun and the BFG. The rest can be skipped or missed because you didn't see the corpse holding them. This includes the chainsaw, which is just crazy to me. The room where you first pick up the chainsaw is an early highlight of the game, yet there are people who walk right past it without noticing. Luckily you get multiple chances to pick up each weapon, including the chainsaw. This also allows for secrets where you can get some guns earlier than intended. I was actually surprised during this playthrough just how many duplicate weapons and chainsaws are strewn throughout the levels. Somehow I never noticed. The chainsaw is just so much better in 2016. Eternal turned it into an essential mechanic balanced around the low ammo, but here you can actually have fun with it. Man, I sure have been bashing Eternal a lot. Look, I'm sorry, I promise I like you too. You just have a lot of design decisions that I disagree with. Now for some thoughts and notes on the various weapons. I like how they gave the pistol an actual purpose beyond being your starting gun by giving it infinite ammo. Like, it's still mostly useless, but at least it serves as a fallback. Well, yeah, I see why Eternal just removed it. Still, it's fun to pop zombie heads with it. The combat shotgun is notable because it is one of the few things that survived every iteration of Doom 4. It's always been there. The design of the plasma rifle is neat. Sure, it's fun how Eternal perfectly recreated the original sprite, but the 2016 one just goes really well with the UAC aesthetic. I really like the micro missile mod on the heavy assault rifle. They're just so satisfying. Speaking of weapon mods, why does Doom Guy need to punch the poor drone every time? I get he's mad, but the poor thing didn't do anything wrong. As for things that do deserve to be punched, let's talk about the demons. Almost the entire classic roster is here. The only ones missing are the Chain Gunner, the Arachnotron, the Pain Elemental and the Archvile. But put an asterisk on that last one, we'll get back to it. We also got some newcomers, though most of them are kinda just reskins. 2016's enemies are just fantastic. They took the iconic demons of the original and crafted them new looks and identities. Almost every enemy has their own role and is instantly recognizable. The pace at which they are introduced is also really well done, with almost every level introducing a new foe. Actually, if you count the bosses, there's only one level that doesn't introduce a new enemy, that being the penultimate one. Despite this, one of the main criticisms the game got was a lack of enemy variety. And yeah, by the end you've gotten accustomed to them all, and the ones added in later levels don't add that much comparatively. But looking at the later games, I think the core issue is that 2016 lacks super heavy demons. You know, your Doom Hunters, your Marauders, Vagaries, Tyrants, enemies that are essentially mini-bosses that force you to focus on them. The only one present in 2016 is the Baron of Hell, which would go on to be the most basic super heavy. And also it just doesn't hit that hard if the game keeps spamming the same guy. Let's go to some of the roster, shall we? We of course start with the basic zombies, which are actually a threat in this one. You can make fun of game journalists all you want, one of these will get you eventually and you're gonna feel bad about it. I like how they actually have a unique kill animation. Several enemies do actually. It's like they are glory killing you. It's a great detail. Also, does anyone know why the generic zombie has this massive hole in his skull? Like, it's very recognizable, but why is it there? I don't have much to say about the zombie soldiers, except that the ones with shields are kind of a pain. I always save my chainsaw for them, cause I can't be bothered. The Hellraiser is one of the few new enemies, but he's really just a reskin of the soldier that thematically fits the Hell levels. The Codex talks about how it's essentially a parasite taking over a human host, which sounds cool, so the fact that he's just a reskin is a bit underwhelming. I guess he does do a charged laser beam instead of a normal projectile. Do you think he was meant to be a take on the Chain Gunner? Next we got the Imp. I like its little intro cutscene. 2016 does this for a couple enemies, namely the Imp, the Pinky and the Mancubus, and they are a nice way to highlight them. Eternal's gameplay showcases included similar scenes for the Arachnotron, Archvile and Tyrant, but they didn't end up in the final game. Bummer. Back to the Imp, it actually had a different design in the first trailer, having just an eyeless skull for a face. Kinda like the Hell Knight and the Summoner. I do prefer the final look, but it kinda throws a wrench into the art design, cause Summoners are explicitly stated to be evolved imps. Speaking of the Summoner, that's another new enemy. Except not really. Remember that asterisk I put on the Archvile? So Summoners mostly behave like the Archvile did in Doom 3. They even do the pose. When I first saw them, I was convinced this was a redesigned Archvile. And I was kinda right. If you look in the Codex, enemies are sorted alphabetically, yet for some reason the Summoner is at the top. Some data-mined beta content has revealed that they were in fact called Archviles until pretty late in development. I also remember reading some beta Codex entries where the Hellraiser was called a Pyrallax, though I can't find them anymore. Now I like the eyeless skull face on the Summoner, but I'm honestly not too fond on how it looks on the Hell Knight. I prefer how it looked in Doom 3, which yeah, the Hell Knight is just lifted from Doom 3, except they took away his projectile to help differentiate him from the Baron of Hell. They do still share the same wig and animations though. It is funny how in this gritty world of flesh and metal, they kept the Baron as a classic cartoon red devil, complete with hoofs. Since I brought up Doom 3, I don't know if this was just a me thing, but one of the main issues I saw people have with that game was the redesign of the Pinky. Like most enemy designs, it deviated from the original, yet somehow this one became a linchpin for people hating on it. To the point that when Doom 2016 got revealed, I remember seeing a bunch of comments worried that they wouldn't bring back the classic Pinky. I wonder why the Pinky design in particular caused such a fuss. Sure, he's an iconic enemy and the redesign looked nothing like it, but it's still a fine design. Compare that to what Doom 3 did to the Caco Demon. This is like the series mascot. How come this didn't become a poster boy for why people think Doom 3 is bad? Luckily 2016 brings both back to their original look, and oh yeah, the Spectre is here too. He's the last regular enemy that gets introduced and isn't really used a lot, so he doesn't have much screen time, but hey, It's nice that he's here. An enemy that definitely did get enough screen time though was the Revenant. This guy was like all over the marketing. The special edition even came with a statue of him, which hey, I get it. He looks great, skeletons are always fun, and he's a pretty good tone setter for this game. Finally, we got the Mancubus. Hot take? Actually, I don't know if this is a hot take. I prefer the 2016 Mancubus design over his classic look. The Cyclops Predator mouth is just more fun than fat guy with too many nipples. As for our final new enemy, we got Mancubus wearing an Oculus Rift. Guys, I know Carmack left it to work for Oculus, but this is a bit on the nose. Now there were also two multiplayer exclusive demons in the Prowler and the Harvester. Kind of a bummer that they don't appear as enemies in the main game. At least the Prowler got to be an Eternal. Interestingly, if you look at old 4.1.0 footage, you can see what seems to be an early version of the Prowler. Alright, enough about the regular mooks. Let's move on to the bosses. The Cyber Demon, also called the Bar Guy in the Codex, is easily my favorite monster design in the whole game and maybe even the entire series. I mean, look at him, he's beautiful! Why didn't he get a figure? Well, actually he did. It costs 800 bucks. Guess I'll have to settle for the Funko Pop. I like how you can find his Codex entry before the actual boss fight. Gave me a real spook on my first playthrough. They actually do the same for the BFG to hype you up for it. Good stuff. There's also a part earlier in the level where you can see him walk past the blurry window. It's a real blink and you'll miss it moment. The actual fight is simple enough, but then he comes back for phase 2 and now it's a platforming section. The Cyber Demon is my favorite boss fight in the game and also the hardest. Like even on this replay I kept dying over and over, though apparently I just suck because he's supposedly very easy. Especially if you use this BFG exploit using the weapon wheel. Oh yeah, the weapon wheel! I completely forgot about that until now. I'm sure it's helpful if you play on a controller. The next boss are the Hellguards, which are original to this game. The double duel is a simple concept, but a fun one. I wonder if they are supposed to emulate the double Baron fight from the end of episode 1. It would complete the OG Doom boss fights. Plus if you look at the early concept art, they looked a lot more like Barons of Hell. There is actually some test footage where they use Hell Knights armed with giant hammers as placeholder models. Kinda came full circle with Dark Ages giving us the Battle Knight. Of course, in the final game we get Flash Max piloted by Worms. I mean, it's a novel idea, I'll give him that, but I feel like the original concept might have been better. The worms do make for some fun foreshadowing though, as you can actually find some in the Lazarus labs, and also a bunch of dead ones scattered before the entrance to the arena. You know, I really thought VEGA would be another boss fight. They put you on this slow ominous elevator to reveal his mother brain looking body, and I think we're just taught to expect AIs to turn against us, but no, he just doesn't resist and we move on to the final level. That brings us to the Spider Mastermind. It's huge, it looks amazing, it has a bunch of fun attacks, and it just kinda dies way too quickly. Yeah, for a final boss, the Mastermind was a bit underwhelming. It doesn't even get a second phase. What kind of game gives every boss a second phase but not the last one? I mean, I guess it's accurate to the Mastermind being a bit lame in the original games too, but hey, at least we get an amazing kill animation on it. It's funny how it still works even if your BFG is out of ammo. Now then, with all the individual gameplay elements covered, let's talk about the actual levels. It's interesting how each level essentially has two names. There's the name of the location, which is also what they are called in the level select, but upon starting the level you're met with these much more evocative names. Doom 2016 has two types of levels, UAC levels and Hell levels. Even then, the game only has 4 levels set in Hell, so 2/3 are set on Mars within UAC facilities. Compared to Eternal and Dark Ages, where you're constantly hopping between locations, this sounds very limited in terms of variety. Yet for the most part, each level feels distinct. From the surface of Mars itself, to the industrial grid of the foundry, the platforming section that is the Argent Tower, and the fairly clean look of the Advanced Research Lab. Even when the game literally reuses a level, it's able to make it feel different. You really get to become familiar with the UAC as a place and how it functions, in a way that Eternal sightseeing tour never allowed. Pacing is the name of the game here. Eternal and Dark Ages are fast-paced action movie roller coasters constantly taking you to new and exciting places, while 2016 is more of a slow burn, taking its time to build tension. One of these two isn't necessarily better than the other, it all depends on what you're trying to do. It makes sense for 2016 2016 to slowly introduce its setting, while Eternal can just build on what 2016 established to immediately throw you into the deep end. That said, Eternal and Dark Ages can feel a bit disjointed, with you just teleporting between locations from mission to mission with little cohesion. Meanwhile, in 2016, almost every level is directly tied to the ones before and after. You'll end a level going into an airlock, and the next one starts in that very same airlock. Even when you teleport in and out of Hell, it's done using these specially set up teleporter points. What also helps are the loading screens, providing you with a map of the whole thing, allowing you to clearly see where you are compared to the previous levels. The Hell levels are a bit of a different story though. While the various UAC levels are these well-defined locations, Hell can feel a bit less distinct. I think that just comes with the nature of it being comprised of ancient ruins rather than a modern facility. Still, each one does have a distinct look if you pay attention. The Kadingir Sanctum is the surface of Hell, a scorched peak covered in broken bones and idols. Titan's Realm takes you into the catacombs, literally starting with you jumping down the Titan's Maw. Then the Necropolis starts within these same catacombs, but takes you deeper below the surface, revealing the endless abyss beneath. It paints 2016's Hell as this infinite chasm, filled with countless layers of floating rock. You may think you've hit the bottom, only to find out it goes even further. It's a unique take on Hell compared to the more classic volcanic wasteland that Eternal and Dark Ages went with. Granted, representing an otherworldly space with nonsensical floating islands is its own overdone cliché in video games, so your mileage may vary. Also, the bottomless pits can make the platforming a tad annoying, seeing as falling down counts as a death and you have to reload your last checkpoint. Glad they fixed that for Eternal. You may have noticed that I skipped the 4th Hell level, Argent d'Honneur. It feels less clearly established than the others. The statues of Doomguy and the Night Sentinels do give it some unique visuals, and the ruined temples around the level are meant to represent the remains of Sentinel civilization, but they just don't feel distinct enough from the other infernal ruins. Part of that is because the visual identity of the Sentinels wouldn't be established until Eternal. Without reading the codex, you'd never know what the deal with this place is beyond just being the last few arenas to finish the game. I guess that's a good segue into general level structure. Way at the start, I offhandedly mentioned that 2016 technically isn't a boomer shooter. Now, genre talk is always a mess of semantics and pedantry, so if you feel different about this, your opinion is totally valid. But from my understanding, proper boomer shooter level structure consists of a big open maze with enemies scattered around it that you just run into naturally. Doom 2016, on the other hand, is more of a series of connected arenas. The corridors connecting these do have enemies in them, but the actual arenas are usually empty until you enter or destroy a gore nest, and then all hell breaks loose. Other games like this are Ultra Kill and Bolt Gun, at least from what I've heard. I still need to play them myself. It's a different flavor than your classic boomer shooter, but it's no less fun. There is a bit of an issue where sometimes you think you've killed every enemy, but the combat music continues playing because there's still one random imp or zombie hiding God knows where. I actually had an extreme example of this happen during my replay. Inside the tutorial arena of all places, the exit door wouldn't open even though I killed every enemy, because as it turns out, one of the imps got bugged and kept running into a wall. Granted, not every level is like that. The Foundry stands out as being way more open than most levels. It still has the dedicated gore nest arenas, but instead of being a linear sequence, they are scattered around the room and you need to find them. The openness of the Foundry becomes really noticeable when you compare the final level with the original gameplay showcase at E3. The structure and layout of the space is exactly the same, but by changing the enemy locations and which key unlocks which door, you get a very different experience. Speaking of keys, despite the linear progression, the levels still allow for tons of exploration. The actual key hunts are mandatory, so the levels are structured to clearly let you find them. To that end, they are also found on corpses to make them easier to spot. That's another gripe with 2016. The collectibles can be hard to spot, especially the codex entries. Eternal fixed this by making them way more video gamey. Shout out to the bits where your key is literally a dead guy. Fun fact, this dude, Dr. Peters, actually got a backstory as the protagonist of Doom VFR, which I haven't played cause I don't have VR. Despite the levels requiring you to find every key, I do think they help incentivize you to do some optional exploration too. It also helps that finding secrets actively provides you with upgrade points. And boy are there a lot of secrets, both big and small. Some of them contain the game's countless collectibles, but there's also the aforementioned early access to weapons, or ones that just contain health and ammo, or a lever that opens a classic Doom level. Those are a nice touch, even if they are super janky. Speaking of nods to the old games, 2016 is full of them. From meticulous recreations of props from the originals, an arena shaped like that simple, to a super turbo turkey puncher tree cabinet and Olivia's office, which not only contains the Soul Cube from Doom 3 and miniature versions of the Mother Demon from Doom 64, but also the best part of the game, Doom Demon Destruction. The necropolis even has the icon of Sin looming over you. That one isn't just a funny cameo, it's directly mentioned in the codex, which kinda causes some continuity issues, but you can shoot a rocket into its brain to make it spit out a classic summoning cube. That's neat. And it's not just Doom games, there's also references to other id and Bethesda games. The funny haha references are the ones that stand out the most, but there's just so many small details scattered throughout the game. Some are foreshadowing, others are just for fun. Like, look at this guy. Someone on the dev team took the care to put a construction hard hat on this specific corpse, just because they thought it would look funny. And the biggest showcase of this care to me is the credits. You get this fun little montage of lovingly created scenes showing the highlights of your journey. Some of them never actually happen in the game, but are still cool to look at. Others are just cute. You even get a shout out to both the multiplayer and SnapMap. It's just good stuff. Unfortunately, this is the only Doom game that does that. Eternal and Dark Ages both just cut to the regular credits scroll. I've talked a lot about this game, both the things that make it great and the few issues that bother me. But there is one aspect I haven't mentioned so far, which is ironic because it might just be 2016's biggest legacy, and that is of course the music. Just like the game itself, the soundtrack of Doom 2016 is truly something special. Instantly iconic, it took the world by storm, embedding itself within gaming and meme culture, and just casually creating a new subgenre on the side. Argent metal. All this because they told Mick Gordon that he can't use guitars, so he used chainsaws instead. No, seriously, the main menu theme uses chainsaws as its primary instrument. Mick Gordon has of course become a household name, even though Bethesda and id proceeded to screw him over in Eternal. I actually consider him to be my favorite composer. Granted, I'm not much of a music guy, so it's not like I know many composers to begin with. Also, I get to be a hipster because I first found him thanks to his work on Killer Instinct, so I was a fan of Mick before it was cool. What's great about 2016's soundtrack, beyond creating a whole subgenre, is how it blends old and new. Sure, the main theme is a remix of E1M1, but BFG Division is a brand new song and became just as recognizable. Throughout the soundtrack you get both brand new music and direct nods to the classics. And also Doom 3's theme is here in its full glory, because it was in fact just that good. I think that's a good summary of Doom 2016, a perfect blend of old and new, trying new things while still respecting what made the originals great. The world of video games is full of failed reboots, but this one, despite having a rocky history that would have killed most games, this one stuck the landing, becoming an instant classic and leading to a new golden age for its franchise. And the results changed not just the world of gaming, but also the trajectory of my life. After all, if it wasn't for Doom 2016, I wouldn't be a VTuber fan.